Hello and welcome to the Midnight Bible Study. Is America in Bible prophecy, end times Bible prophecies, including the War of Gog and Magog, and what's their role? And is it in the Bible? Do we know, is America in the Bible in end times prophecy? So, all right, we're going to take a look at that right now, and I'm going to be just talking about Bill Salas's um, his research into this topic. He wrote the book called The Now Prophecies, which is a really excellent book. Getting into this, and he does some really first class research. So I want to just look at some of the connections he makes here about America. Now we're talking about Ezekiel 38 and the Gog and Magog war, and who are its participants. Now there are several. There's the victor, who is God. There's the attacked, which is Israel. There are the invaders, which we'll talk about, and then there's the protesters. Now, this is very interesting. The protesters, which include Tarshish and the young lion. So that'll be important in just a second. But what's interesting about these protesters is that they complain about the evil intentions about the invaders. Okay, that's going to become very important. And the protester lodged in 38:13, Ezekiel 38:13. So now the modern equivalent of these protesters, because they were obviously the countries had different names, you know, way back in Bible times. But the modern day equivalents are the young lions, for example, would include the colonies that came from UK, namely, so including North America. That's an important point. So we've got Tarshish and the young lions mentioned as the protesters. So, but the question is, who the heck are Tarshish and the young lions? So that's kind of what we're going to look at here. Now, Ezekiel 38:13 in parts gives us several clues about this, and one of them is that the merchants of Tarshish are concerned about the motives of the invaders. Now, the merchants, they seem worried about the possibilities about basically the invaders are going to loot, pillage, and plunder Israel. They're going to rob them of their wealth. And now these Tarshish and the young lions are concerned about this. The protesters. Now, why would they be concerned, and who would be concerned? Who are these people? Well, according to Genesis 10, Noah's great grandson through Jephthah, who fathered Javan, uh, who in turn fathered Tarshish. So that's the lineage there for that. Well, what is Tarshish? Where the heck did that come from? That is being talked about as Tarshish and the young lions, who are concerned and worried about Israel being looted and robbed of their wealth. Well, where did these Tarshish come from again? Okay, that's Noah's great grandson through Jephthah, and he's the grandfather of Tarshish. Okay, so that's the line. That's the line. Now, all right. Well, where's Tarshish? Where's Tarshish? All right. Now, there's a couple of theories on it. One is Spain, and there's another one which I want to tell you about. Um, According to Bill Salas, he says that his research leads him to believe Britain is one of the locations of Tarshish, and North American countries are the young lions. And we'll see that Salas did some excellent research and really makes the connections. Now, the islands of Tarshish, they show up in Psalm 72:10 and a couple of other scriptures. So in Psalm 72:10, it says, "The kings of Tarshish and the isles shall render tribute. The kings of Sheba and Sheba shall offer gifts." So the question then is, these isles. What isles? That's what isles are being referred to in Psalm 72:10. Now, many of the maps display ancient Tarshish as being uh, around not around the Strait of Gibraltar, which makes Spain a possibility. Um, However, some archaeologists believe that Tarshish was the ancient name of Britain. And according to respected Bible prophecy expert, Dr. David Hawking, he says this. He says, if you ask me today if the USA is in Bible prophecy, I would have to say, on the basis of historical documentation and on the basis of the British Museum and all of its records around Glastonbury, that it begins with Great Britain, Tarshish, and undoubtedly, as a seed-bearing people, it refers to the USA as the Young Lions. As we know, USA was spawned out of Great Britain. Now, around 587 BC, Ezekiel acknowledged that tin was among the primary metals that came from the mysterious Tarshish. Tin. Okay, well, Cornwall, a country on England's rugged southwestern tip, this is a quote out of Salus's book. Cornwall, a country on England's rugged southwestern tip, was the only major source of tin in Europe for the past 2,500 years. That narrows it pretty well. That's some strong evidence. If you put that in court, that would raise some eyebrows. I mean, like it would get some people's attention as relevant evidence. So what about Tarshish today, which we're now going to say is quite possibly and perhaps probably Britain? Ezekiel 38:8 does say this finds fulfillment in the last days. Now let's talk about Great Britain. At its height, they were considered the largest empire in history, and it's the empire upon which the sun never set. So, but then we know that we also know that Tarshish or Britain has faded since their glory days. And since then, the United States rose up to be the main superpower as Britain faded. So this becomes really interesting because presently America is playing the Young Lions role in the Mideast. Now, this is what Salus writes. He's talking about 1979. The USA was instrumental in brokering a peace deal between Israel and Egypt. So, for a long time now, Britain, or up until recently, I mean, very recently, USA has been playing the peace brokers in the U.S. I mean, even Trump had the Abraham Accord recently, which fell apart after his presidency ended. But it was like the most revolutionary peace accord in my lifetime. It's the first time in my life that peace looked like a real possibility in the Middle East. But there was many other attempts. It seems like a number of other attempts in the decades prior to that, less successful. So here's a question. We'll get back to that, but here's a question. Why does it sound like from Ezekiel 38 like these protesters, they're kind of passive. They're like, well, they want to know their intentions. It doesn't seem like they're making threats or they're saying, look, don't do it, or we're going to take action. All options are on the table. Nothing like that. No, they're worried. They want to know the intentions of the invaders. They're worried like about their commercial interests that they have in Israel. So if let's just assume that the Young Lions are in fact USA, and Salus has certainly connected the dots in a very persuasive way, then why would they be content to take this sort of passive role on the sidelines while Russia comes in and loots and vandals Israel. Now, we know that that would that would not be acceptable. However, if all of a sudden, if Russia became much more powerful and the United States became much less powerful, then that seems more plausible. All you have to do is take a look at the Ukraine war and what's happened from the beginning to present of the Ukraine war. At the beginning, uh, the USA still at least had the illusion of great power in comparison to Russia. And in fact, they did have it. But what happened is uh, the whole war was so mismanaged, and Russia was literally pushed to. They've become they are far more powerful now than they were. Just listen to Colonel McGregor talk about it. He talks about how Russia is far more powerful now than they were at the beginning of the war because they've massively built up their. I mean, they've tripled the size of their army, and they've activated all their factories, and they have more. They have more warfare equipment of warfare, and more a larger army than by far than they had before. Whereas the United States, I mean, they've lost a lot of prestige. I mean, estimates are the Ukrainians have lost 500,000 boys in this war that was funded by the United States, and the Russians had one casualty for every 8 in Ukraine, according to Colonel McGregor. So it was pretty much a complete rout. I mean, it's still going on, and they're keeping it alive, but uh, it was a sad day for everybody involved. Certainly, all the mothers and fathers, 500,000 mothers and fathers in Ukraine. I mean, Russia and at the beginning of this thing, Russia was at the Abraham at the yeah, the Abraham was it? No, it wasn't the Abraham. I forgot the name of it. The peace deal they had going. They had a peace deal ready, all lined up, and they were about to sign it. And then Boris Johnson, rushes down from the UK and says, "No, you're not going to sign this peace deal." He's talking to Ukraine. "You're not going to sign this. We're going to give you lots of money. We're going to give you lots of weapons, and you're going to not only fight Russia, but you're going to smash them and crush them." And they bought into this, and we've been sending billions and billions of dollars, like over and over again, ever since then, and all these weapons. The only thing that didn't work out is the part about winning. But they smashed the peace deal for this game they're playing, and there's 100 or 500,000 parents who's lost their kids. So that was a great experiment. So why does USA want to remain on the sidelines? Well, one reason may be that they aren't as powerful as they used to be. I mean, we've seen them just in the last few years uh, get weaker and weaker. So the thing about it, though, is that what this really suggests about America is that that they may continue to get weaker. Now, nobody knows really for sure the timeline. A lot of people are saying this is pretty much happening right away, and perhaps it is. Uh, some of these terms are relevant. How weak? Um, how weak? So some of these are relevant points, or relevant terms. But uh, we, if America made a comeback, let's say in 2025, in the next administration, for example, if they did, well, then this would push this all back. But at some point, it certainly, and it could be that we're already over the edge. But it certainly looks right now that America is not only is headed for kind of a weaker time than ever before. So that's kind of what the Bible tells us about the future of the great superpower of America. It's a little sad, depending on how you look at it. There you go. There's from the Bible, from Ezekiel 38. Is America in Bible prophecy? It certainly looks like it. So we thanks to Bill Salus for breaking this down in his book, The Now Prophecies. God bless you, and good night from the Midnight Bible Study.